Repeated patterns of trauma or crisis is what trains the mind. Y'all listen, this is what's training your mind to overeat. That crisis of trauma is training your mind to have negative behaviors. It's training your mind to sleep all day. It's training your mind to enjoy depression. And when I say enjoy depression, you're not necessarily enjoying it, but your brain is enjoying that feed that it's getting to have its way. Hey, you could be depressed. You know, the brain has gotten comfortable being in traumatic experience. Oh, my goodness. I don't know what's up with my speech tonight. But your brain has gotten comfortable in being in that traumatic crisis. I'm a firm believer that these patterns that the enemy has laid out before you can be broken if the person is willing and equipped with the knowledge they need and the willpower to resist them in order to get the change they desire. When we do the visualization technique and you start seeing yourself in a better place, that helps you. That helps to create areas it helps your brain to have excuse me, y'all, I had to sneeze. When we visualize things, it helps us to have activity in our brain that we usually don't use when we're going through stressed out times. And so in order to change our brain patterns, we got to stop being greedy. Somebody needs to write that down. I got to stop being greedy. And you don't even realize you're greedy. You know, we got to stop being greedy. Use our self-control and discipline to help us get through this recovery process. And it's going to take discipline. And it's not going to feel good. And no, you're not going to like it at times. But we have to use our self-control and discipline to break these patterns that the brain has been programmed with. That's what you call brainwashing. If you can be brainwashed to feel so bad, then you can retrain your brain to feel good. You can retrain your brain to enjoy life again. You can retrain your brain how to respond to crisis and how to recover. This recovery process, y'all, I can't tell you how important it is. I don't have enough words to tell you how important it is. Over my years that I have been through nothing but trauma all my life, since the time of 7 years old. Half the stuff I don't even remember half of my childhood. Well, I wouldn't even say half. You know, I don't remember most of my childhood because I went through so much stuff. It was when I got in my 40s that I realized that, hey, something's wrong, something does not feel right. And what it was because of the emotional abuse that I had suffered, and it was long-term emotional abuse from the time I was like I said, I don't know if it started even before 7 years old, but that long-term psychological and emotional abuse that I suffered, it caused me to crave and attract people who were no good for me because that's what I was used to, and that's the energy that I was putting back out, that, hey, I got it like that. You can come into my world and destroy it because that's how I was carrying myself at that time. So in order to change our brains, we got to identify with our greed, okay? So vocabulary word, and I got this definition from GotQuestions.com. It's greed. This is our first vocabulary word of the night, which is greed. Greed is a strong and selfish desire to have more of something. Let me say that again. Greed is a strong and selfish desire to have more of something. Most of the time it's money or power, but in these cases, not everyone, but some of these cases like domestic violence and obesity and those cases where people have been emotionally abused, it's so easy to overeat emotions. You hear what I'm saying? In the recovery process, you find yourself overeating emotions. You feel yourself drawn back to overeating those emotions. And it's an unconscious greed because you don't even realize that, hey, this is what I'm going through. Because anytime you have been through any type of crisis or emotional abuse, what ends up happening is your subconscious mind records this stuff, but it doesn't necessarily process it right then. And then when you're out, when you're into safety, your brain, your mind does not recognize safety signals. It's not used to being safe. If you've been going through long-term abuse of overeating or, like I said, domestic violence, any of that type of crisis stuff, if you have long-term abuse of that, your body is going to crave it. And we must not give in to the greed. Even though it's them doing it to us, we're the ones that gets the craving to go back into that line of fire. You hear me? We get that craving. We get that adrenaline rush that says, hey, you need to get back in there. Get back in there and play the game. In the line of fire. Get back in the line of fire. That's what our mind is telling us because that's what our mind knows because that's how our mind has been trained for so many years to get back in that line of fire. And we know that line of fire is dangerous. We know that line of fire can kill us, but we want to get back in there because that's what our brain is craving. Our brain is craving more trauma because of those chemicals that were released that I was talking about earlier that I could not pronounce. Our brain is releasing that stuff, and it's craving it. It's wanting us to get back to, we need to get back to get more fuel from our bruiser. So in recovery, you're going to realize just how attached you were to your abuser. So I want you to remember that and write that down. You're going to see that it's hard to leave a situation that you have gotten used to, that your brain has got comfortable in. Your brain has got comfortable working overtime. Your brain has got comfortable in the fog. It didn't pull out a whole living room suit for you to sit down in that trauma. Your brain has gotten comfortable to it. But we have to break that cycle. We have to break that bad pattern. Okay, let me ask y'all this. Why does a woman go back to her abuser knowing he is dangerous? Because of that craving. Because of the brain wants to go back to what it's used to having, even though it's not good for you and it's bad for you, and you know the result of sin, the end result of sin is death. The wages of sin is death. You know that. Death to your spiritual well-being, and in some cases, death to the physical body itself. But the woman goes back because she's craving him. He's like a drug. She's craving that abuse. She's hooked on it. And so when she was in recovery, her mind starts to tell her, hey, we're getting weak over here. We need some more of him. Okay, why does someone who is obese get results? They're improving, and all of a sudden, they go back to the same eating habits. Because the brain is telling them, hey, I'm not used to this. I need to get back over here to where we can eat all that good candy and cakes, and we ain't got to do no exercise. We can be lazy. We can lay back. We can chill, girl. Let's chill. Let's drink some more. Let's do some more drugs. You know what I'm saying? That's how the brain speaks to you. The brain wants you to do what it wants you to do. But we have to be wise in any given season and understand that our minds are so deceiving. Our minds can deceive us as our eyes can. Why is my brain fog? Why is my brain fog stuck? You're stuck in brain fog because you haven't allowed yourself time for your brain to get back cleared out of that trauma. And it takes time. Some people say, I feel like I'm giving in to my cravings. No, wait a minute. Some people say, I feel like I'm craving this experience again, although I know it's not good for me, but I got to have it. And that's how you feel. After you come out of a crisis, sometimes if you don't recover, you're gonna crave more trouble because your mind needs more trouble to keep you going. Although it's draining and killing you, but the mind thinks that it's doing something. The brain does. You can bond with negative emotions, you know that, and behaviors that you crave. You become trapped in your own head, going without sleeping or eating, going in isolation. You know, there was a period in my life where I was in nothing but isolation for years. Y'all, I'm not talking about just isolation for a month. I'm talking about I went in isolation. It was years. Like, I would go in cycles. Like, for 6 months, I would stay in isolation. And then for about 2 or 3 months, I come out and then go back in it. You know, so it has a cycle of its own abuse. And when your mind gets used to that, you know, you're going to crave that same isolation. And to God be the glory, I have been fighting that isolation in the last 2 years not to go back into isolation, because that is not a good place to be whenever you're in depression or having anxiety. Okay, so when you become trapped in your own head, going without the sleep or eating properly, your brain gets stuck in that routine. People with anxiety are so self-aware sometimes until it disables them mentally. People who are traumatized from narcissistic relationships, you know, they crave a fantasy love that isn't real, but the brain recognizes it as real love, although it's not real love. It's a dangerous situation. But because they are trauma bonded to be without the person, they feel sicker. They feel sick whenever they do. When the brain doesn't get what it wants, it feels sick. Okay? So sometimes, y'all, I wrote my notes all jacked up. I think I was writing too fast. Okay. Okay. So sometimes the brain will perceive certain sicknesses based on a one-time experience, you know, stuck in that gray area, I guess you would call it. And it doesn't want to be free. The mind does not want to be free. And that's why after a crisis, we have to force feed these minds good things. You have to force feed your brain something good and positive to get you out of that negative pattern. Another vocabulary word, which I'm going into in just a minute, you have to get out of that cycle of abuse. You have to get out of that repeated pattern that you have been used to doing. I remember, y'all, when I came out of the relationship with the narcissistic guy, and this was my third relationship with a narcissistic personality disorder person. And when I came out of the relationship, I found myself just always craving, even though he did me wrong. He cheated on me. He stole money from me. He stole out my household, y'all. My household became empty, but I couldn't let him go. I saw exactly what he was doing. I knew exactly what he was doing, but there was a part of me that I could not let go, and that was that trauma bond. I had been bonded with the negative part that he was doing, and it felt like love, but reality was it was not love. It was hate. What he was doing, he hated me so bad for who I was that he did everything he could to destroy me. And every time I got back up, he made sure he knocked me back down emotionally. So you see, this is how this trauma bond thing works, is you know they're not good for you, and you know every time they're around, you get headaches, you get sick, you get knee pain, you get arthritis here, arthritis there, you know your vision even go blurred sometimes. My vision went bad one time. He was yelling so much and stuff. But you crave it because of that bond that's there. and that bond is not love. And so you have